Hi, I'm Mike, owner of the In-Groove in Phoenix, Arizona. So today I'm doing a news update. So a couple things I wanted to talk about. One, the Eagles one-steps that Mobile Fidelity recently announced, and also the ever-increasing price of vinyl. You know, I don't know if you guys have noticed it. I'm guessing most of you have, but if you haven't noticed it, being in a store, it's become quite evident. So first off, Blue Note has announced a price increase. Well, announced is not the right word. They haven't actually announced a price increase. They've just had a price increase. So the Tone Poets going forward look like they're going to be $35.99. It looks like they had like a $1 price increase. What's odd about this is it seems like a lot of the represses are at that price point, and a lot of the upcoming titles that are already available for pre-order are still at the $34.99 price point, but it looks like the represses have hit the $35.99 point. Not a huge price increase, but it's a price increase. Also, the Blue Note Classic is having that same dollar price increase. You know, it's noticeable. It's getting to the point where it's very, very, very noticeable. I used to have price increases on an item. You know, when I would receive stock, maybe something would go up every couple, 2, 3, 4 months, add up the thousands of different records that came into the store. Now, it is a guy's job who has to go through every single inbound item that comes into the store and check for price updates, because manufacturers are raising the price. And sometimes it's significant. Sometimes the price increase is so much that if I were to sell it for what it used to be, I would lose $2, $3, $4 a record. So it has to be checked very frequently. It's unfortunately become somewhat obnoxious. But that is, you know, has to do partly with inflation, partly with production issues. I know somebody told me, a label told me that all records pressed at Optimal that are not for that immediate market, so essentially the United States presses, are getting a pricing, increase. Don't know how accurate that information was, but probably pretty accurate. I trust the guy, I trust the label that told it to me. So, that's going to spell price increases. Price of everything is going up. You guys probably have noticed that. Project is having, and I want to say it's this Monday, I think, what is that, the 23rd? Project is having a price increase on one of their, probably if they're not, their most popular turntable. The Carbon Debut Evolution. It's going to $599. Now, kind of that table has already had a price increase. So the old Carbon Debut DC was $399. They made a couple of minor tweaks. They raised it to $499. The tweaks I don't think weren't the $100 price increase, but with the tweaks, and rather than raising the price, the new model came out of $499. But now we're having a $100 price increase. So a table that you more or less could have got for $399 a couple years ago is now $599. So equipment is having major price increases. Vinyl is having price increases like crazy. Certain labels are more apparent than others, like music on vinyl, which comes out of Europe, is being affected a lot more. I think a lot of that has to do with the weakening dollar. But yeah, price increases are here to stay, but I kind of wanted to fill you guys into the fact that Blue Note is doing a price increase. So if you see that, that is the reason why. Okay, so the big announcement, it's kind of funny. So a lot of people were saying, Mobile Fidelity has been doing weak titles lately. We got weak titles coming out of MoFi. The one-steps are weak. What's going on? People are, I saw people on the vinyl community, videos, forums complaining. When you don't hear anything from a label like MoFi for months, and that's what it had been. It had been months since we essentially had anything new announced. There's a reason why. Something's cooking. Like, these labels make money on releasing things. And if you're not releasing things, you're not making any money. So they're always behind the scenes. Obviously we're not privy to that, but these labels are always scouring for titles. So MoFi / Billboard announced that they are doing the first 6 Eagles titles as a one-step. How's that? Now, see, me personally, I'm not really an Eagles fan. I could take the greatest hits, and that's good enough for me. I think I'm that way with a lot of bands that have come out strong on the radio over the years. If your music has been on the radio incessantly for 40 years, I'm not listening to you very much. That's a lot of Eagles, Steely Dan, those kind of bands. But I will say this. When you think of audiophile bands that the audiophiles love, there's like certain bands that just always pop to mind. Pink Floyd, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Steely Dan, and the Eagles. Quasi the Doors, but not really. Maybe I'm a little skewed because that's probably my favorite band of all time. The Eagles are up there with audiophile royalty. If you look at some of the most expensive audiophile records, value-wise to this day, you know, the upper echelon of stuff, look at the Hotel California that the Mobile Fidelity did, the first incarnation of Mobile Fidelity. It is one of the most expensive of the original Mobile Fidelity titles and hardest to get. People don't let it go. The label DCC from the 90s, Steve Hoffman was associated with, kind of morphed into Audio Fidelity, one of the most expensive titles you can get on that label. I want to say maybe the second most expensive title would be the Eagles Hotel California. Number one is Queen's Night at the Opera. That is an extremely difficult record to get and quite expensive. But I digress. The Eagles are a big, heavy hitter MoFi title. So they announced the first 6 titles, essentially self-titled up to the long run. The first 2 titles, so you've got the self-titled coming out August 15th. That is limited to 7,500. And then you have Desperado coming out on September 15th, so back to back. So this is something that when it was announced, these things have to be made, you know, for an announcement to come out on Billboard, that must have been something that was done in conjunction with the Eagles camp. So this is something that more than likely these records have been done. They're sitting somewhere and they're just ready to go, ready for a target date. I don't know that for sure. That's just speculation on my point, but I'm pretty good at speculation because I know what I'm doing. You don't just, in this day and age with delays, you don't have a big announcement like that come out on Billboard, and this is not like a for sure type of thing, especially when it's this close. Now, if they said it's going to be December 15th, and that was a missed target date, that would make a little more sense. But when it's this close, these things have to be done and ready to go. I didn't talk about it on my new arrival video because these things are extremely allocated for the stores. I'm going to have some, but they're essentially forcing you to go internally to buy these things. Makes sense. I mean, I'm not a fan of it personally. You know, I'm a store. I like to sell records. I like buying records. I like selling records. I'm going to get some, but I'm not going to get enough to do a pre-order on them. So that's kind of the case with these super limited titles. If it's something that's super, super limited, you know, these audiophile labels are kind of holding it for themselves. But I will say this, they are sending me some. So I've had occasions where that's not been the case at all. But this is going to be a lot like the Jeff Beck Truth title, to where I'm going to get them, I'm going to put them up for sale locally, internally in the store. In the case of Jeff Beck, that lasted minutes because people were lingering around the store waiting for that title to come. But I'm going to release them locally to locals. Whatever I have left over is going to be available on the website when we close that day. So that's kind of how I'm going to do it because it's just super limited. You know, it would be something that if I did a pre-order on it, I would literally have to just, it's going to create issues. It's going to create email problems for me. I'm going to be blowing up on emails. It's going to be creating a lot of disappointed people. I'm sorry, guys. That's just the case. If it was up to me, I'd have all 7,500 and I'd sell them to you guys. But this is not, you know, not my label. I don't get to make those decisions. This is what it is. But I will tell you this. I am quite surprised that they still have 7,500 of these things. They were announced a couple days, you know, maybe a week ago. This has kind of been going on. Maybe a little longer, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. But at this point, I am really, truly shocked that these titles are still here. 7,500. You got to think a band like the Eagles. Look at all the other titles that have come in the One Step series, rock titles. The Yes title. I mean, just some of these titles that have been done to death. Look at these 2 titles have not really gotten the audiophile treatment. I am just so shocked that these things are still available. They're going to sell out really soon, if not any day now. And they're going to be extremely expensive when they do. These are going to go up significantly. And the thing is, too, people keep this in mind. People like to build, people have collector mentality, especially audiophiles. They have the collector mentality. There's 6 titles announced. Maybe the self-titled is not their favorite album, or maybe Desperado is not their favorite album. But when they have 3 or 4 of their favorite albums and they're looking at them on the shelf, they're going to say, man, I'd really like to have those other 2, just, you know, to complete the set of 6. Maybe there'll be more, but they've announced 6. So that's going to further drive up the price. The same way I feel every One Step is driven up by the fact that there's some guy, you know, multiple customers, many, I would say more One Step customers of mine than not buy every single one step, even if it's, if they're not jazz fans, they'll buy it, or if they're not rock, they buy it anyways. They buy it to have it as a complete set. So these things are going to be prime for future collectability. There's just no doubt about it. Certain titles like the Yes, that title's been done many, many times, and it's almost twice retail. The Paul Simon, which just recently came out, is pushing $200. It's been done. Audiophile versions, I think there was an all analog cut of that recently. The originals are super plentiful, easy to get. Doesn't have the cachet as those Eagles titles, and they're still pushing $200. So these are going to be home runs. Now, I will say, I think the 7,500 quantity is a result of years of planning. More than likely, this is something that's been in the hopper for a couple of years, probably when it got started. And these numbers were firmed up a while ago. Now, I did notice in the Billboard announcement that they talked about the first two titles are going to be 7,500. If they do 7,500 Hotel Californias, that is going to be a shit show. That's going to be, I don't even want to, oh man. That's just going to be a lot of people angry. There's going to be a lot of people who miss out. One of the best-selling albums of all time. If Kinda Blue sold 25,000 or will sell 25,000 copies, Eagles could, they could do 50,000 one steps and they would sell. Maybe it might take them a year, but there's nothing wrong with having merchandise in stock for a year. But 50 at this point in the game, 50, and you got to think too, this might be 6 months to a year and a half in the future when that title comes around. These things that could be a 50,000, the market could hold maybe 50,000 of those. And I don't see a problem with that. I'd be willing to bet that the market could take 50,000 of those in. So if they don't inflate that number significantly, if they don't, if it's not already done, oh God, that's just going to be a problem. I mean, just wait for the pandemonium to set in, sit back, pour yourself a beverage, get yourself some popcorn, get out your laptop, go online. It's going to be entertaining. But I really don't think that's going to be the case. I think, without knowing anything, I really truly feel that the fact that Billboard specified that these two titles are limited to 7,500 and not the fact that they said the entire run is limited to 7,500, I really think that's going to be an expanding number as time gets on. Because although I'm not an Eagles fan, those Eagle albums got better as time went on. There's certain bands that peak with their debut. The Eagles were not one of them. They peaked, obviously, with Hotel California, but which came some time down the road. So, yeah, so that is it for the, I wanted to talk about this. I thought about doing it on a new arrival video, but this was more of a conversation I wanted to talk about a little more in depth. So, a couple of topics I wanted to address. But guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time.